Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to YouTube Anomalies. Here we have Little Runmo, a famous YouTube animated short film by Gooseworks. It takes place in a platforming game universe where... Oh, okay, well, I'm sure Little Runmo will improve the next time. Anyways, as I was saying, Little Runmo was published in 2019. I actually remember it pretty fondly since I believe I was one of the first few thousand people to actually watch it. But my bragging aside, Gooseworks is a popular composer and animator who's been involved in more videos and projects than you might think, but oh, let's watch. Not quite, it was a good try, but with one life left, it now seems like Little Runmo is a bit concerned about a game over. So he decides to consult his helpful sign companion, which isn't much of a help. Until he says this: I sometimes wonder, at what point in a pit do you actually die? The story of Little Runmo is based entirely upon the concept of what really is down there in that bottomless pit in every platforming game. Well, I guess a bunch of nothing. The first thing that Little Runmo spots is a machine dispensing and destroying lives, presumably to generate power, kind of like the moons in Mario Odyssey, but we can observe that it's producing this strange green goop, so Runmo follows in its direction. Where he discovers an old-fashioned king on his throne. It's revealed that the green goop generated by the machine is actually a substance that the king regularly devours. The thing's body resembles that of a frog, or maybe a crocodile. I guess he's somewhat reminiscent of Rool, with his plate of armor and crown. They even have slightly similar teeth, and you can also notice how both of their names are a play on words. After noticing Little Runmo, the king grabs him, which makes Runmo somewhat uncomfortable, and... the king summons the Glorgs, a band of minions characterized by their swirly, spinning eyes and rings of fangs, and apparently one of them was still being fed. The middle one produces a shiny bullet which, after a brief battle, pierces Runmo in the back of the head. After discovering that he actually had one life left, Little Runmo flings himself back down into the unknown depths below. But before we return, let's analyze Runmo. Runmo is much different than your average platforming mascot. Most game mascots employ gloves or boots to emphasize the character's features, but Runmo stands fully naked without a single article of clothing on his body. If that didn't make him alien enough, I'll mention he's got a bit of a belly, which further distinguishes him from typical game mascots who are meant to look cool or ideal. I'd even say his physique is more comparable to a gummy bear than of a video game protagonist. He's got a bulbous nose and two shoe-shaped feet. Another distinct feature is his two bright red eyes, who stick out even more since on the color wheel, green is the complete opposite of red. His two eyes also both possess big red X's which emote whenever he's feeling scared, likely anticipating death, which Runmo seeks to avoid in this film. He instead pursues lives, like in this scene in the storage room, where his blind greed betrays him as he appears oblivious to the Wreckingball above. Then in a similar and possibly the most iconic scene, he's again tempted by the promise of a longer life. And then appears the Meatball Man. To me, what makes the Meatball Man so disturbing is the fact that it's entirely visually different than every other character in the film, seemingly constructed in Photoshop, kinda like Omega Flowey. He's completely inexplicable, this entire scene is intense and the music is brilliant. It evokes no emotion other than confusion. His mouth frowns, and though he has no eyebrows, you can sense his anger by the way his asymmetric eyes curve slightly downwards, which I guess is what intimidates Runmo. His grotesque face just keeps getting bigger and closer until Runmo surrenders and U-turns, running even quicker backwards than he was forwards. He spots a train and then hides out of sight, hanging from the sign at the beginning. I will mention that this placement doesn't really make that much sense since he had to fall another story to get to the Meat Man floor, but whatever. He loses his grip and falls into the trash can, where he discovers the machine once more. After pressing the off button, he returns to the first room he entered. The king lies dead, now made up entirely of... and is taken up by enigmatic hands. But Runmo's curiosity gets the best of him again when he decides to investigate a small puddle of goo produced by the tap. Imagine his surprise when he meets a new king. He's eaten and likely anticipating death, but is instead thrown into a game show. Which actually ends up being rigged to kill the king. And after a tense scene, he loses and the new king dies. The corpse is taken up by a previous creature into a morgue. I think now might be the perfect time to mention how death is a prevailing theme in Little Runmo. The morgue houses graves, urns, corpses, and bones. Need I remind you that almost half of the characters in Little Runmo die. Runmo, the Little Dangers, the king, the new king. This trash bin basically dies. Even the character in the final sequence dies. The film is filled with this death imagery, from the way Little Runmo's heads are destroyed, to the way it's explored in the game show sequence, as well as the permanent X's in Runmo's eyes always reminding you of death. Runmo is reminded of death once more as he gazes into the eyes of the deceased Jumpmo, discovering a secret. But perhaps one that was not meant to be discovered. The world shakes, his lives glitch and play the noise of a lottery machine. He's granted infinite lives, or so he thinks, until an ancient power is awoken and this game's god arrives. A huge celestial jellyfish who has marbles for eyes tells him that blunders such as this have consequences. The level collapses and Runmo is taken on a psychedelic journey. The pursuit of life is more dangerous than a life in pursuit, is where he reminds us that not only is the theme of Little Runmo death, but life. In this film, we see him tempted by life 4 different times, but it was only this time where he was punished. Except, not really. Then Runmo spawns back in with 3 new lives, and he completes the puzzle for the first time. But then discovers that there's actually no game left.